Hello my little learners, you can call me Lovegood, and I hope you enjoy this video. Here are just a few things before we get started. Today, I'm presenting you with Chapter 2 of How to Raise a Child Nemesis, titled The Uncle, by sabertoothhousecat on AO3. But anyways, thank you for tuning in to listen to me. As always, tags are in the description, as well as warnings. But that's enough of my rambles and jambles, and let's get right into the fic. This is the summary. Summary. All for One gets a new phone wallpaper, and Izuku takes things a step too far. Let's get right into the fic. All for One considered, as Midoriya Izuku embraced him, that he might have made a mistake. He'd actually thought, right before the kid had dived into him, that there was a possibility Midoriya knew who he was, but the odd, frozen look had been gone so quickly, and Midoriya was right about the colour of All for One's hair. The truth was, second-guessing himself now wouldn't accomplish anything. He had already laid all the groundwork for his success. Taking steps backwards would set him off course. He waited for Midoriya Izuku to get off him and brushed off his suit. "You know," he said through a smile that might have qualified as trying too hard. "Last time I saw you, you were only this tall," he gestured. "No way he was that short," Bakugo Katsuki said. All for One could kill this kid by blinking. Wipe out the whole family in an instant. He forced himself to smile. Hyperbole. "Are you staying for dinner?" Midoriya asked. "Well, of course he is," Bakugo Mitsuki said. "It was very kind of you to reach out, Midoriya-san. Izuku-kun has been lonely since Inko-san left." "I have not," Midoriya said. "Yes, you have," Bakugo Katsuki said. Midoriya glared at him. All for One did his best to chuckle good-naturedly. It came out sounding a little strangled, and Bakugo Mitsuki sent him a weird look. "I forgot how funny your laugh is," Midoriya said, and joined in on the laughter through his crooked teeth. All for One was struck with the strange notion that Midoriya was somehow covering for him. But why he would do such a thing instead of being suspicious himself mystified All for One, so he put the entire idea aside. "Don't make fun of your uncle," Bakugo Mitsuki snapped, and disappeared into the kitchen. All for One attempted to give Midoriya a conspiratorial smile, but Midoriya was busy in a silent argument with Bakugo Katsuki and didn't return it. Not for the first time, All for One wished he had a quirk that would let him read minds, but quirks like that tended to destroy a person from the inside out. Maybe if he found one that was easy to control, he would take it, but such a thing was so rare it wasn't even worth it to look. Bakugo Katsuki left the room with a final glare at All for One, and it was just All for One and Midoriya. Immediately, the pressure in the room spiked. Midoriya fixed All for One with his huge green eyes, and All for One once again was struck with the unsettling feeling that Midoriya knew much more than he was letting on. "How long are you in town?" Midoriya asked, an innocent question, but there was an insistence to it that set All for One on guard. "I'm not sure yet," he answered. Midoriya opened his mouth, hesitated, then said, "Why are you here?" A shiver had the audacity to run down All for One's forearms, but the conversation was interrupted by Bakugo Mitsuki shouting about dinner being ready. "Sorry," Midoriya laughed, already heading for the kitchen. "Weird question. It really is nice to see you again." Who, All for One wondered, even was this kid? The moment Izuku's uncle, the head bad guy, finally departed the house, Izuku excused himself and went straight to his room, where he buried his face in his pillow and whisper-screamed into it. Because, the head bad guy was Izuku's uncle. Not only that, but he was very capable of holding a normal conversation with the Bakugos and seemed actually kind of chill. The picture of him Izuku had found on the internet made him seem mean. Maybe he had a villain persona and a nice normal person persona. This opened up a whole new world of possibilities for Izuku. His uncle was a supervillain. This was the perfect setup for the situation that had happened in All Might 2 Victory Lap, in which All Might's estranged cousin had been the main antagonist. Izuku would be like All Might, and he would defeat the head bad guy by being the head good guy. Additionally, this raised some questions. If Izuku's uncle was a criminal mastermind, then what about his dad? What if his dad wasn't actually in America but was lurking in the shadows of Japan, waiting to attack people? It was a little scary thinking about it. Once Izuku had gotten his excitement about being related to someone who wasn't exactly famous, but sort of like that, he let the reality sink in. There had been a very scary person in the Bakugos' house because of Izuku, and he could have killed all of them. More importantly, there was a scary person who Izuku happened to have a connection to and who Izuku could help stop. But carefully. He couldn't rush into this. He sat down at his desk and pressed his fingers into his forehead, lining the pads up with his eyebrows. This wasn't the sort of thing he could just call a hero to resolve. Well, if it was All Might, he could, but that was one of the only phone numbers he hadn't managed to get off the internet. Probably, it wouldn't be best to turn it into a whole hero operation with Izuku as the bait, but he got the impression that the heroes would try and rush in and end up messing it up. He flipped open his notebook and passed through the pages, trying to figure this out. Midnight, Clairvoyance, Gangorka, Eraserhead, Mrs. Izuku stopped, turned back a page. Eraserhead had been flying under the radar since his second sports festival at UA. Izuku had first marked him down because he thought Eraserhead was probably the closest to a quirkless pro hero that he'd ever find, but that was beside the point now. Underground heroics. That was the sort of mission Izuku needed to embark on. He needed to spy. He rushed out of his bedroom, kicking on his shoes and ignoring Masaru's question as he fled out the door, down the stairs to the first floor. Not worth it to wait for the elevator, or his uncle would already be gone. He ran out the front door of the apartment and caught just the edge of a white head going around the corner. He sprinted for it, yelling, "Oji-san!" at the top of his lungs. He rounded the corner and grabbed the suit by the back, pulling his uncle to a stop. For a moment, he was absolutely sure he had met his end. From the way Oji-san looked down on him, he was certain he was dead, but his uncle recognized him then and said, "Izuku-kun?" with such genuine bafflement that Izuku felt safe enough to take a step back and hold up a finger so he could catch his breath. Izuku wheezed. He needed to work on his stamina, clearly. "So, are you around for a while? Because I could live with you, instead, if you're okay with it." His uncle stared at him, mouth partly open, and Izuku allowed himself to feel a minute of triumph for shocking the head bad guy into silence with his own evil powers. Izuku was exactly like All Might. "You want to live with me?" Oji-san said. "Yeah," Izuku beamed. "The Bakugas are nicer and all, but they're not family, and you are." "I don't live in Musutafu," Oji-san said quickly. He then held up a hand and closed his eyes for a moment. "No," he said. "No, it's fine. There are ways around that. I would enjoy caring for you in your mother's absence." Villains were super weird. "Okay, cool," Izuku said. "So, we have to get my mom to agree to this, and she's really stubborn and overprotective, so I have made a 5-step plan. Can I borrow your phone?" Oji-san, staring at him like he just teleported in from another planet, opened his phone and passed it over. Izuku was temporarily distracted from his plot when he came face to face with a colourful background. "Your home screen background is the default?" he asked, horrified. "What's wrong with you?" He looked around for something to take a picture of, but the street was dead boring. He was the only exciting thing in it, so he opened the camera app, flipped the camera, and took a selfie of himself beaming. "You don't even act like an uncle," he muttered, navigating to the settings. Although this was the phone of a supervillain, the settings were all normal and no evil plans were immediately evident. Lame. Utterly lame. He changed the home screen and the lock screen to his selfie. When he was satisfied with the positioning of it, he went back to his original scheme. He opened the Notes app and wrote out his 5-step plan. Then, he navigated to the call button, which had a lot of unnamed numbers in the history. Super exciting, super scary, all the stuff. And he dialed his mom's number. Oji-san looked bewildered, like he had just been the victim of a vicious attack and still hadn't figured out how to respond. Izuku gave him a thumbs up. "Hello?" His mother answered the phone. Izuku grinned and started laying down the groundwork. Alrighty, my little learners. That's a wrap of this one. So we get more of Izuku talking to his uncle, and I love that he refers to him mainly as the head bad guy in his head. I think that's hilarious and I love that. I cannot wait for the next chapters. Again, this will be out every Wednesday. Different times, because I get around to editing at different times, but yeah. So, my little learners, this is a little reminder. You might have something you need to check. I hope you will have a fantastic time, wherever and whenever you may be. Day, night, dust, dawn, light, high tide, whatever it is for you. You can call my love good, and that was Chapter 2 of How to Raise a Child Nemesis, titled The Uncle, by sabertoothhousecat on AO3. Again, the link to this fic will be in the pinned comment by me in this video, and tags are in the description as well as warnings. Bye, little learners.